We are back. It's the GrandStand. It's episode 19, P Money, of season 5.
What up?
What's up, dude?
Man, going back racing, I was looking at the schedule and I kept looking for a gap in the schedule. In terms of like the summer break, it's less than a month this year. So these races keep on piling up, man. It's gonna be a busy year.
We've had 2 races canceled, right? We had China canceled and we had Imola canceled. So we're back at 21, but yeah, I mean the back end of the season after the summer break is fully torqued. It's loaded. It's loaded.
It's usually my favorite part of the year too.
It's loaded like a hot plate of nachos.
Ooh,
Fully.
nice.
That's what I think of when I think of loaded fat ass.
Yeah. Or loaded fries. Yeah.
You know, like full of a little bit of like poutine, post Canada poutine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, not to be confused with Putin, of course, who had a great weekend.
Oh god.
But dude, yeah, we're back in Austria this weekend.
Yeah, Schnitzel land.
Schnitzel, yeah, not Schnitzel. No idea what that is. But let's roll that intro and get into it.
Let's do it.
A question for all of you except Romain Grosjean.
To whom it may concern, fuck you.
More ladies in the paddock? Yeah, more paddock access to some women. There's too many dudes.
Okay, amazing job! I'm so proud of you! You did amazing! Happy we did it! Happy we did it!
I don't really have a lot to comment on that, except that he was being a pussy.
So interesting investments or investments. Well, there was an interesting investment, interesting updates since we recorded our last episode, but it looks like an American investment group that includes Rob McElhaney and Ryan Reynolds from the Wrexham FC fame. Also, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, whatever Ryan Reynolds does. I haven't watched a Ryan Reynolds movie in years, and I apologize because, he's funny. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, you know why you haven't? Because he's been busy making bank.
Yeah,
some really good
too.
Business decisions. I think he's in the mobile industry for a minute, sold it to T-Mobile. In the gin industry, I didn't know he was in. Motherfucker's making big money.
Dude's doing a lot of things.
Enough to invest in Alpine, apparently.
Yeah, he's part of an American investment group that has bought a 24% stake in Alpine, and at a $900 million valuation, which I was saying to you before we started recording. But it's interesting to me when you look at the value of F1 teams versus even some teams here in the States. They're not as valued as you would think they would be. I mean, there's some hockey teams from smaller markets in like Canada and the United States that are worth more than some F1 teams. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think the reason why you might be surprised is that F1 was not in the same franchise model until Liberty Media really made its plans known in the last few years. Like Williams was only sold for 152 million euros. And I remember Force India was not bought for much at the time when Papa Stroll bought it. And if you think about his investment, and if he ever sells it, it'll be well over $1 billion, right? So I think we're entering a new economic era for F1, and it might get a little harder for new teams to come up because it's you got to pay to play now.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's the sports are completely different, but yeah, that's a big investment from it's the firm is called Redbird. And they're also invested in Fenway Sports Group, who own the Boston Red Sox and Liverpool. They also have a stake in AC Milan in Italy and Toulouse in
Damn.
France. Yeah, so these guys have they carry some experience, but it'll be interesting to see how that impacts Alpine, that new investment, and obviously won't see an impact this year, but yeah, it's getting competitive from a financial perspective in the sport. Not that it hasn't always been, but it's a new era.
And from what I understand so far, they will help with the monetization of the sports side, so not on performance and operations.
Right.
But once again, that's what's said in the beginning, and then we'll see how well those two get along.
Well, yeah, the entertainment side.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more content next year. And who knows, maybe Ryan Reynolds will start a new a sitcom around F1 because that seems to be the trend now.
Yeah, well, he did one with Wrexham FC, the
Mm-hmm.
the sort of mid-tier Welsh team, and yeah, I mean it's dude's kind of he's making moves in many parts of the world. He's one guy as part of an investment group, and they only secured not only, but yeah, a measly 24%.
Just the fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, just a fourth of the whole damn team.
Oh, man. Oh, he was Deadpool, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still Deadpool. I mean, he's still arguably, he is Deadpool until they get Ben Affleck or George Clooney or some other weird ass version.
I feel like George Clooney might have passed his time on that one.
Yeah,
You never know, though.
Who knows?
Because apparently Brad Pitt is going to be in the new movie coming out that's produced by Hamilton. Also, he will be driving the car in a very American way of like, I'm getting out of retirement to show these kids how to race, and he's like 60, right?
What do you mean American, dude? There's one. I mean, Fernando Alonso much like.
He's 41. Brad Pitt's 60.
All right, fine.
Anyway, I'm excited for all these F1 developments. I'm more excited about what's happening on track these days. So, and some of the events coming up.
Yeah, what do we got? There's announcement over in Germany.
Yeah, F1 is going back to Nordschleife, and if you're new to F1, this is a classic F1 track and one of the most dangerous tracks in the world, I'd say, in history. This is where Niki Lauda had his famous accident, in which he burned his face off. And a lot of drivers have lost their lives there. Safety has gotten much better over the years, but still not homologated for an F1 track yet. But Sebastian Vettel, good old Seb, is coming back for a demo run in his 2011 Red Bull. This will be in September, along with ex-teammate Danny Rick DR3. He's going to ride the 2012 car, I think. And Yuki Tsunoda is going to drive a Honda racing car, a GT car, I think.
Red Bull's bringing out all the stops.
Very exciting, except that I think Max wanted to go and Helmut put his foot down. He vetoed that. He said, I don't trust you not trying to go for fastest lap and potentially putting a car on the wall or potentially injuring yourself, which would be the only way he could lose this title right this year.
Yeah. He's like, well, these guys are going faster than me, so I have to.
Yeah,
I have to be faster.
He's a true racer, that fucker. But yeah, I'm excited to see those, whatever content comes out of that. Seeing modern F1 cars at the Nordschleife is pretty exciting.
What's interesting about that track too is it makes up part of the Nürburgring.
Right.
Yeah. They've got the Grand Prix circuit. They've got what is called Südschleife and then Nordschleife.
Yeah, the Nürburgring was built around it. Part of it, I think part of the track is kind of shared, but you dip into the forest and the track is wild. There's so many turns, so much camber, uphill. If you're a sim racer, you know that Nordschleife race is absolute chaos.
It's funny because this morning I was watching I was watching hypercars on the Nordschleife, like these
Sexy.
sim racers who take the most ridiculous cars and put them on the Nordschleife, and like what? Like cars are like flying hundreds and hundreds of yards off of hills.
Yeah, there's a reason why F1's not going back there, because the lap would be over 5 minutes long and it's just too big, and there's not enough runoff for modern F1 cars for it to be safe for racing. But who knows? Maybe someday.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, that'd be wild. I mean, it'd be crazy to see that there. But speaking of Danny Rick, there's a lot of chatter about where this man is going to be next year, as far as Formula One's concerned. And I don't know about you, but I've heard that there's possibility that he goes to AlphaTauri, which I think would be a huge mistake for him personally. That car is not competitive. I just don't see that happening. Another crazy Redditor thing I heard.
Oh yeah, bring it.
This one I really like is that he takes Lance Stroll's seat at Aston Martin. I don't think that's based in any fact whatsoever, but I liked it enough that I have to.
This is what happens when there's no race on a weekend. People start typing shit.
They're just like, well, I'm gonna stir the pot.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, conspiracy theory. I'm all for that, man. Bring it on.
The reason behind it makes sense. I mean, you've got a race-winning driver. You've got I don't know if he and Fernando would get along though. I don't know about that. I don't see the two of them necessarily.
Also, Danny Rick hasn't raced for 2 years now, or is this his first year? This is his first year. Wow, it just seems like it's been longer. I don't know if you want to come back and get your ass kicked by Fernando. That's what would happen, to be honest.
You think that's what would happen? Yeah.
Fernando has a knack for destroying people's careers, and Danny Rick would not fare, especially since Fernando's had a whole year with the team. The team loves him. He's steering the team in his direction. You don't want to get in that second seat.
I don't know. I mean, listen, again, it didn't come from a very valued source. It was on a Reddit thread, so I just really liked it. But yeah, man, I mean, silly season has officially begun. Any other whisperings you might have heard?
Yeah, I feel like this is the third or fourth episode in which we claim silly season has begun. I think it's in full swing.
Yeah, it's in full swing.
And it's exciting. It's keeping us excited. I did hear that there is another team that is in the running that just put in a bid for entry into Formula One in 2026 when the new regulations come out, and that is High Tech, which races an F2, F3, and F4. Really good British racing team. And there is also another team led by Craig Pallock that has a bid as well, under review by Formula One. And it's a team that wants to make it 50-50 in terms of gender equality. So that is staff and drivers, apparently. So that's the name of the team, 50-50. So there's three teams along with Andretti / Cadillac as well. How many of those teams will get the entry? We will have to wait to find out, but there's some interesting projects coming up.
That is, I don't, 50-50 as a team name doesn't sound that.
Yeah,
doesn't sound that great.
Maybe they need Ryan Reynolds to help them with the branding there.
Yeah, 100%, man. I don't know about that team name, but no, it's great to see the interest in the sport.
The name is called Formula Equal. Sorry, it's a bit better for branding. Not
50-50.
It's
a little better.
In my notes. Yeah. So 50-50 male to female ratio for staff. And actually they did not mention driver. So sorry about that. It's staff. There's that. There's Andretti and Cadillac, and there's High Tech, which is pretty good. 3.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's solid. Just going to Andretti quickly. A lot of people don't want them in Formula One.
Yeah.
Seems to be a lot of pushback against them.
I think the attitude he comes in with is not my favorite, to be honest. I would rather see High Tech on there, because for me, they just sound like a more credible racing team. Andretti just seems too political. But could be good for F1, because then there'd be an American team that actually claims it's American. And
there'd be a real American team in the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever Haas is. I guess.
Haas needs to do more with that. Come on.
Yeah, they just don't really feel like an American team. But yeah, man, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens in that realm. But we are back racing this weekend.
Yes,
We
sir.
are at the Red Bull Ring, at the home of Red Bull in Austria. Let's just start with the elephant in the room. Red Bull have been, I mean, Max. Let's just go with Max. Max has been incredibly dominant. Red Bull are light years away in the constructors championship right now. I've got a question for you. Considering they've been so dominant this season, is it time they have a slip up? And do they have a slip up or a sloppy home race in Austria?
I would like to say yes, we're due for a bit of a fuck up, but if you look at the track record, there's only one side of the garage that's been fucking up this year, and I think it's time that Senor Checo rectifies it. So I feel like they're gonna put on a great performance, and I highly doubt they'll drop the ball at home. But you never know. Maybe there could be some rain this weekend, and as we all know, rain could throw up some surprises. So, yeah, I guess it's not a foregone conclusion that Max wins with pole and wins the sprint and all that. But yeah,
I guess it's more of a hope on my end.
I think it is. Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely more of a fingers crossed. Can this actually happen? I realistically don't believe that it will. I don't know if I see that actually happening, but I don't know. It just feels he's got to have an off weekend at some point, right? It just feels natural within, and I'm not even saying it at this point because I want it to happen because I'm not a Max fan. To make it very clear, it just feels like statistically, stat boy, the numbers aren't in their favor at some point.
Yeah, so whenever you're on a streak, right, there's a higher potential for you breaking it. So in terms of stats, you are completely right, my friend. But I think rain is our only way to not see a Red Bull 1-2 or just even a Max win, I'd say this weekend.
Well, I do think what's interesting is Red Bull hasn't been fully dominant. I wouldn't say they've been fully dominant at this track in the last 3 years.
This is a strong track for Red Bull. They were winning at this track when Merc was at their height of the domination. So as you mentioned, 2018, I think in 19, there was a few. That was the first time that Verstappen and Leclerc went wheel to wheel. There was that huge debate whether he got pushed off or not. This is a great track for Red Bull, which is why if it's dry conditions with the RB19, which might end up being the most successful car in F1 history, I don't think that much can go wrong here. But let's see. There's been some updates from other teams, and
yeah, I think I guess it's more of a, like I said, more of a want for me.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like a hope.
But let's be real. At this point, if Max finishes P2, that's a huge upset. So,
a huge upset?
Yeah, I mean for him, like Max is Red Bull has won 18 out of the last 19 races.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. It's kind of hard to bet against him right now. And you're right. I mean, Red Bull has had a decent enough history at this track. It's their home race. Yeah. The Orange Army is going to probably be out in force. I just don't 100%. See it. I don't. It's hard to bet against them. But then again, I just always think back to Mercedes in 2019 when they went to Germany and decided to put on those costumes and just completely made a mess of it. But I don't know, man. I think we'll see what happens there. I've got another thought though, and it goes. We're going to the P2 battle for P2 in the constructors, but Aston has been I think, the story of the season so far in terms of the progress that they've made. And obviously, we know how Fernando's been performing. Going into we're going into the summer break. I don't think this is necessarily the issue this season, but should Lance Stroll be worried about his seat?
Well, if you look at the numbers, if Lance Stroll's last name was anything else but Stroll, I would agree with you and say yes.
Yes.
And he would be, in my opinion, he would be in even greater peril of losing his seat than Nick de Vries. Because Fernando, 117 points, Lance Stroll, 37. He's got 2 DNFs, but one of them was him hitting the wall. At some point, I think since Aston Martin is not fighting for the championship this year, they don't really care. But if it does start costing them championships when they're fighting for it, then we'll see. We'll see if Papa Stroll is going to be ruthless and make that decision. Or does Lance just say, hey, listen, I've gone up against one of the best, Fernando, and I just can't take it to that level. Maybe it's time I go see elsewhere, which at some point, he'll have to look at himself in the mirror and make that call. But in terms of the team getting rid of him, I don't see it happening.
I think what you said is spot on. If his name was anything other than Stroll, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Fernando obviously said he's going to be out for blood for the rest of the season, pre-Canada.
Yes.
And he also seems like he's performing at an incredible level. But as we look to P2 and P3, Merck, obviously we've been talking a lot about the performance they've been bringing. I think, regardless of Lance being worried, I think Aston should be a little bit concerned about the pressure that Merck is bringing at this moment.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a two drivers against one. It's Russell and Hamilton versus Alonso, and you can't just carry a team on your own. So that's going to be a tough one for Aston Martin to get that P2, to get that back, unless Stroll starts putting in decent results and fighting and getting those top fives. It looks like Hamilton and Russell are both feeling good in this car, especially Hamilton recently with the new updates. So
yeah,
I don't see it happening, but I do see Alonso fighting with Hamilton, fighting with the Red Bulls, hopefully in the second part of the season. So I'm more excited for that. I think P2 is already over in terms of Aston Martin versus Merck to be.
Really, you do. I mean, it's only a 14-point gap, but that's a big claim there.
Remember, Russell had a DNF. That was 12 points that he lost because he hit the wall. Otherwise, it'd be 26 or at least 25 points. It is a big claim. Who knows? What if Aston starts racking on the wins?
Yeah, I mean, Lance hasn't had a great season. I think you're right. It's George and Lewis have been much more consistent than Fernando and Lance as a team. Obviously, Fernando's had a solid season so far, but yeah, no, I just Lance got to put on the big boy pants.
He does. Yeah. He's on my list of needs a result for this weekend.
I like that. I like that as just a general question. The going into a weekend, who needs a result? Yeah, Lance needs a result.
Lance needs a result. Alpine, who's been doing pretty well. I'm not going to say as a team they need a result. I think Gasly needs a result.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think so. I mean, Ocon's stock is rising.
Ocon low-key is is one of the best drivers on the grid this year.
Wow, he's making claims this episode, folks.
Yeah. I'm recognizing, when a driver does well. I think if you're a Ferrari and if you're a top team, you're keeping an eye on Ocon in case you lose a big driver. But look what happened in Monaco, podium, like that qualifying lap in Monaco, and just his consistency. I remember he used to put in performances and not back them up, but now I feel like he's always there in the points, and he's getting some higher points. Gasly, on the other hand, he has the pace and he has what it takes to get those same results. But unfortunately, it hasn't gone his way. And he's also gotten screwed over by, a couple of Ferraris in the last race and in qualifying, sometimes his team strategy, some safety cars. I don't think that Gasly's doing anything wrong. but it would be nice for him to just get momentum.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, last race in Canada really kind of Carlos screwed him.
Yeah, big time.
Not literally, but I'm sorry. I don't know. It's too easy. Yeah, but the Carlos really fucked his race up. Yeah, so I think it's really just have like a just a quiet weekend in the points and gain that momentum. You're right. He's got to have one of them.
And if he could beat Ocon, that would be good for his morale, I think.
Yeah, I think that's another situation too, where the teammates, I think Alpine starts putting in results where, Ocon and Gasly are, 6th and 7th, or even 4th and 5th in some situations together, or just both finishing in the points. Alpine's got P3 on lock, or I'm sorry, P4 on lock.
P4.
Yeah. Which brings us to the team in red, Ferrari. And I guess, yeah, I mean, my thing is, I think Ferrari's got an Alpine problem at the moment.
You know what? I think you have a problem with Ferrari, my friend. And I don't like it.
Fight me, bro.
Oh, man, this Ferrari bashing is starting to get to me, honestly.
I'm sorry, man. I'm not bashing them. It's tough out there. It's hard out there for a Tifosi.
Hey, I mean, it happens for a reason. Yeah, it's funny until a certain point. It's like when you're teasing your friends at the bar, and then all of a sudden they get real serious. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
Or they make fun of you, and you're like, yeah, it's so funny. You guys are funny. But you actually just go into the bathroom and you start crying.
Yeah,
you can't handle it.
Completely in denial. This wasn't what I did last weekend for sure. But no, so I think Alpine could start racing with Ferrari, and we've mentioned it on this podcast a couple times in the last few episodes. But in terms of points, I think we're good. I think there's 78 point gap, which is quite a bit. But yeah, going into next year, things need to change. P2, P3, P4, and P5. So right now, Merc, Aston Martin, Ferrari, and Alpine, they could give us some really tight racing in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it realistically on just a pure points perspective, Ferrari was got 22 to Alpine's 4 in the last race. In Spain, it was 10-5 in Ferrari's favor. Alpine did have 21-12 in Monaco in their favor. So it's been kind of going back and forth, but the big haul was in Baku, where Ferrari scored 36 points to Alpine 0. So, I mean, it's got these are two teams who, when they're consistent in a weekend, can really rack up points for that P4 position. But I don't know. I mean, it's still a huge gap between Ferrari and Alpine, and that Baku race, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, really helped them out.
Well, first of all, look at you throwing out the stats. I don't know if I should be worried there or not, because I don't have any on hand this week.
I'm going to overtake you, dude.
Damn.
Want to talk about overtakes?
Someone's plotting right there.
Yeah.
My take on this is that, yes, Alpine's on the rise, but I have and you're going to say this is my Tifosi hope, but I think that Ferrari has a bigger chance of fighting for podiums in the second half of the season consistently than Alpine. And I think they will stretch that lead. And I think they've got P3 on lock for me. Does that mean that there won't be any races that Alpine is stronger? I don't know. But also, I think Alpine could even take it to Merc and Aston Martin on some tracks. So if you remove Red Bull from the championship, we've got a really thrilling battle for constructors and drivers this year. I mean, we're already talking about 2024. If they can close that gap, it's going to be really good racing next year.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. A team whose stock is just completely imploded this season is McLaren, and we can make this brief, but let's. I mean, a team that scored they've only scored points in 3 races this year. McLaren, can you believe that?
They've got 17 points, P6 in the championship. They have admitted that their car was not born properly this winter, and that they went a different direction to develop it really late. So they're actually racing with a car that's not even a 2023 spec for them in their for like in terms of where they want to be. So I think the first few rounds, or now it's been 8 rounds, has been just limiting damage. But yeah, I said this on the last episode, and I'll maintain this. They're coming out with a pretty aggressive upgrade plan over the next 3 to 4 races, which should bring them up. So if I were Alpine, I'd be more worried about McLaren than I'd be about Ferrari, because McLaren could start actually taking it to P5, and that's kind of a classic battle the last few years, Alpine versus McLaren. And we know that they have 2 really good drivers. We got Norris, who's, for me, should be fighting for wins given the right car, and Piastri is actually putting in solid performances as a rookie. When they get their car in the right window, Alpine they're going to be watching their back, I think.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, the gap between Alpine and McLaren is definitely a smaller. McLaren just has to get it right. They're another team where it's like they just need to have a quiet, consistent weekend, no incidents. Car's got to be in tip-top shape. We'll see. I would really like to see McLaren put in some good results. I think Lando is too good of a driver to be in this situation. Piastri, obviously a rookie this year, but also not. It's really the two of them. It's not like they're binning the car every weekend. It's definitely a situation where the car just doesn't seem to want to do its job for them.
Yeah. And I think they're all waiting for those upgrades. So I'm going to hold off on McLaren. I've been saying this for a minute, but I'll wait till they have their upgrades in, and then I'll judge them.
Well, another team who's a little bit further down the line, who's not the bottom of the barrel, finally.
Not anymore.
No. after Canada, we've got Williams, and I'm curious to see if Williams, if we look at the bottom end of the team results right now, we've got Haas P8, Williams P9, and AlphaTauri in a abysmal 10th.
Yeah.
AlphaTauri's not having a great season.
Abysmal.
Gasly's it's not good.
Yeah, it can't get worse, right?
It can't get worse. Literally, they're the worst right now. They're P10. I'm curious to see what Albon's able to do this weekend in Austria. He tends to race very well there, except when he's not getting hit by Lewis.
Ooh. And that's coming from the LH boy.
Yeah, Team LH. Sorry, it's not. We remember, but I do think I'm curious. Williams, where are they going to be at this weekend? I'd like to see Albon have another good weekend, but consistency is a key here.
Let's be real. I want to see Albon lighting up the midfield every race. I love Albon. I like his way of defending. If he gets any points, it's going to be through a bit of luck, maybe a couple DNFs in front of him, but he could hover around that, P10 to P14. And depending on what happens, he could score another point. Definitely has a higher chance of scoring than Logan Sargent, because let's remind everyone that Albon's the only one with those upgrades still till the next race.
He still isn't getting what? That's crazy. That's interesting. Wow.
That's budget. Yeah.
Damn. So sorry, Logan.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, Logan would also be on the needs of results list, unfortunately, but I don't know how he will be able to compete with Albon given the inferior equipment he's getting, to be honest, this weekend.
It doesn't seem possible, but I don't know. I agree with you. I want to see Albon, also just his interviews after his race in Canada was great. His post-race interview was fantastic. You could just see the shift in his energy was wonderful. I want to see more of that. We like the kid.
And if I may throw in a bit of silly season talk, in the post-race interviews during which Albon was being praised, one team boss came up and said, I was following Albon's race as much as my 2 drivers. And that was Christian Horner.
Whoa.
Some people are saying that he might be back into that realm of, should we put Albon back in a Red Bull? Hey, just throwing it out there. Danny Rick might have some competition.
Look at, dude, Red Bull's ridiculous.
Yeah, Red Bull is fucking crazy.
It's so absurd. If that's if that's even a thought on someone's mind, ooh, can we get him back? It's whatever. I could go down a rabbit hole on that one, but
Yeah, we'll save it.
I mean, speaking of that seat within the Red Bull universe or the Red Bull camp, we've got, obviously AlphaTauri we were talking about, but Nick De Vries, man, I mean, if he doesn't get a points finish this weekend, or even like close to the like that P10 to P14 position you were talking about, are we going to say so long to Nick?
We still have a few races before the summer break, but
yeah,
I think he's on that list as well. He's number one on that list of needs a result.
Yeah, he's definitely number one.
He's on that list. McLaren's on that list. Who else we got? We got Logan. We got Checo. It's a long list. Pretty much half the grid needs to get their shit together this weekend. but yeah, given Red Bull's coming back home for this race, it would be a good idea for De Vries to outperform Yuki, first of all, and maybe score a point. A point would go very, very far for him to just not...
it would take the pressure off.
Yeah.
That was for sure.
100%. So, once again, De Vries, who had a pretty decent race last time out. Let's give him credit for that. At the end of the day, it's about points and it's about fighting in that midfield. So, Nick, get on it this weekend.
God be with you. God be with you.
Yeah.
But, dude, well, this weekend we've got a sprint race.
We do.
We're back to in the sprint format that some drivers love, other drivers hate. I personally really enjoy the sprint race format. I think it's nice to have a little change up. I don't think it's necessary for every race, but I think every now and then it definitely gives us some excitement. But I just looked at the weather for this weekend in Spielberg, Austria. We have 86% rain on Friday, 66% rain on Saturday, the sprint race, and 47% rain on Sunday. So
the radar says rain all 3 days.
Yep.
Which is why I was referring to that so much earlier. When is Max going to take everything? Who knows? He also is really good in the rain, so don't get too excited.
True.
But
this week, you go first, my friend.
Yeah, it's time for our stand championship. Quick recap. We're at 140 for you, sir, and to my 108. And I am going to take some risks here. I'm going aggressive this weekend, and looking at the forecast, I think we have a wild weekend. And I think Fernando gets pole position. Lewis wins the race. Alonso P2.
Wow.
Max P3, which would be for him would be pretty bad, but I think shit's happening. Leclerc P4, and this is the kicker, Stroll P5.
Okay.
Yep. And my Gromo is going to go to, I'm going to give De Vries a little break, but Logan Sargent.
Okay. I thought you were going to go with De Vries. Just like, whatever. He's still not going to get a result.
Oh, man.
You're going to give Fernando pole. I think I'm going to take a little risk here myself. I'm going to go with Charles. Because remember, it's a sprint race. I think Charles can make that happen.
But remember that pole position still is awarded in qualifying and not the winner of the sprint race, to be clear. That's the rule this year.
I think Max still wins this race. I do.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Lewis P2, Fernando P3, Charles P4, and George P5.
Okay, George, all right.
And I'm going to go with Yuki for a Gromo.
Poor Yuki.
Yep. Well, he's always got one in him.
He does.
I wish you gave Gromos for his radio Gromo were allowed. God, he'd win every weekend.
Maybe a new category next year. Wow, it looks like we have very different. Yeah, except for P4, Charles and P4. That's one thing we agreed on there. Wow.
You could clean up. You could clean up this weekend. Who knows?
I don't know. I feel like mine's riskier because not putting Max in P1 for the race is pretty risky. But hey. Let's pray.
Yeah, pray for rain. But yeah, man, going to be in Austria. I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's also the 4th of July weekend here in the United States. So
What?
is, fireworks and hot dogs, baby.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite. I'm going to eat a lot of glizzies. Glizzies in F1. Make sure to give us a follow at the GrandStand F1 on Instagram and Twitter. And if you haven't already, give us a follow anywhere podcasts are available. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we'll be back next week to give a full recap of the Austrian Grand Prix.
Auf Wiedersehen.